On today's episode, we welcome Florent Bouchy, founder of Holisticformatics. Florent, welcome.
Thank you, Maxime.
So can you walk us through why you started your business and a bit of your background?
Sure. The background started with computers a long time ago with the Commodore 64 and the cassette tapes. I had small instruction cards from my brother with how to load the systems. While I was learning to read and write, I also learned to discuss and dialogue with computers early on. Working my way through the internet and the home personal computer, I studied a lot in computer science in general, starting to specialize in the high school already, and then going through engineering, through tech with the business management, a lot of industrial systems, all of this in the informatics lens. My first real background was actually in research, in R&D. We studied a lot of aspects of computer science. So it was mostly about the complexity of systems, a lot of programming languages, analysis techniques. There was early AI, machine learning, like pattern recognition, classification, neural nets. Went through operations research too. So that gave me a view into the world of scheduling too, that I used later on in manufacturing with businesses. But what I focused on mostly was the graph theory, the complexity. So really theoretical computer science is where I went on to continue in a PhD and postdoctoral research after that. Basically applied mathematics, but still a lot around formal verification of infinite systems and testing of distributed systems. So what I'm keeping from that in what I do today is mostly the ability to handle the complexity in both abstract and practical aspects. So why I started the business, how I started it, it was mostly because I realized at that time, after several years, like research teaching wasn't as stimulating as it was, and wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. After trying industry and academic sides of R&D, I just pulled the plug. I didn't have a plan. I just took a leap of faith and into the unknown. And after having done a lot of odd jobs through all of this, I already had insights into the business world, seeing many industries of different company sizes, both in France and Quebec. And with the research part, I also had to travel in half a dozen countries and work with international colleagues. So that kind of prepared me, set the table to start Holistinformatics.
Was all that background related to the ERP business that you have now, or was that like a new skill that you learned for that business?
It was not directed towards that, but it gave me the ground to do what I do today. So I got all of the tools and insights I needed, and being a quick learner and observer, I picked on early when I actually started to do freelance contracts after that. So yeah, ERPs, we just knew it existed and quickly went over it in the engineering school, but we didn't spend a lot of time on that world. And what's kind of funny to me is that most people working in ERP come rather from a business administration side of education and not so much from tech. It's still kind of balanced, and a lot of people get tech later on. But on my side, I come from tech and I picked up on the business side of it later.
And why do you think is that? You think it's not usually tech and it's more like admin that goes into ERP?
I think maybe it was kind of meant to be that way, but the main issue is often around the processes and how the business operates and how change is managed. So it's not for nothing that it's called digital transformation a lot, and more. Even if it looks and sounds like a buzzword that goes over the head of most small and medium businesses, it's still actually kind of true. So the tech is just the tool, but how you actually implement it is really is really about how the business operates and how you adjust, how do you address this business.
But it does come from like a tech at first, and then it's used as the admin or how they actually use those systems to make the business run.
Yeah, so people in the business are going to use the tool, and they need to be prepared correctly on what's going to change and actually how it's going to change. If you just come with this is a generic solution. It's worked that way at my previous job, or this is how it's supposed to be. The vendor told me it's the best practice. This is what generally gives a lot of friction and even failures in that kind of implementation projects, because you actually need to sit down with the people who operate the business and the system and the tools and really listen to what's going well, what's not going well, and what's really required to go on. So
And
kind of,
what's usually like the first thing that's broken in that what you just mentioned? You just mentioned like the tool, the processes, the people. What's usually the first thing that breaks into those?
yeah. So the thing is, software itself is rarely the issue.
Okay.
Even if what we hear from the people is often, "Oh, this system is broken, this software is bad, I don't like it." Sometimes it's really a feature or UI, UX issue, but most of the time it's how it's been implemented. So in what I've seen, it's kind of all over different parts of people process technology, but it can be processes, standard operating procedures, governance, communication, the silos between the departments, the training. So that kind of more business/humans part of the project. The other part, like I said, is not so much the software itself. It's more about the data. That's the bridge between all of people process technology, the integrations between different pieces of software. So you have to look at the architecture, solution architecture, enterprise architecture, a lot of manual workarounds sometimes. So people are going to bypass the process and procedure with their own tools and technology. This is often an issue, and it creates technical debt, technological debt. So I wrote something recently on LinkedIn about tech debt because it's really a poorly understood concept most of the time, but it can be taking really various forms. It's often difficult for people to really see that without external help. Maybe in larger enterprise, large companies that are fully equipped with digital transformation departments, they know what it's about. Most SMBs I work with, they don't really understand, or maybe just 10% of the issue.
So is usually for SMBs, is it more a work of making them learn the system, or it's usually a redo of the system and then they can use it? Because you just mentioned like sometimes the people doesn't really understand how to use it properly or how to make it work. So is it more you come in, you learn them on like the system, that's how it works, that's what you need to do, and then it works again, or you have to redo the system entirely and then learn them the new system?
Yeah, without pointing the finger to any side,
Yeah.
sometimes it comes from the vendor or the implementation partner. Sometimes it
Okay.
comes from the business itself and the people and the way the business is managed. Often it can be both, but the mentality that we're purchasing a software, we're paying you to implement it, you're the vendor, you have a commission, you only want to implement your generic solution, maybe configure it a little for the specific business and the use cases. It doesn't work for larger systems. Even before you reach ERP, CRM, and big system size, often it's why I have to rescue projects when I started contracts. It was not thought for this specific case, for the situation of the business. So we really have to start with the process reviews and even before that, readiness assessment, what we call phase 0 in the industry of digital implementation. Is this business really ready to start this project? The stakeholders, are they aligned on what they need to do, what they want to do with this project, what's the actual return on investment, how it's going to be measured or assessed. So you start with really understanding the current picture and where you want to go. And only after that, you can start thinking of which system are we going to actually select and use. But it's the reverse of what happens oftentimes. People just say, oh, I want this system, or a new director, manager comes in. I had that system at my previous job and it worked well, so this is the way to go. Or I heard in a magazine, Gartner or Forbes, anything, you need to have this one. But this is not a good decision. This is not a way to go in digital implementation.
And from your experience, have you seen often of the time that like those business just go with an ERP company and that ERP just say, yeah, yes, it's going to work, and it is implemented without doing all the checkups that you just mentioned, like making sure it's actually going to work. Is that something that happened kind of often or?
Yeah, to a different degree and extent, but
Okay.
the configuration is done on what the business actually tells them.
Mm,
But when you're on the vendor side, you don't really have an incentive to spend a lot of time on premise with the people and really understand what's happening. There are partners who do that, but it's
yeah.
clearly not the majority.
No.
So this is why I have jobs and contracts, because we need client side expertise to level the field with the vendors and really help the company know what they should actually bring on the table, and the vendors actually know which direction to take better and more easily. So it's not whose fault it is, it's just there's a missing piece oftentimes in that kind of project.
So basically, the client asks something, and then the ERP businesses will just do that system without asking a bit more question. Is it not supposed to be like just like any AI, like yes, it's going to work, yes, it's not going to work. What you're asking is not. Is it mostly like, oh, the client is actually asking, we're going to do it, whatever it takes?
There are two sides in what you're saying. One part is really a fixed project mentality, and you kind
Mm,
of want to fix the
yeah.
outcome and a budget and a timeline. And this is one of the reasons it fails often. It's unrealistic
Okay.
deadlines or scope because it was not prepared correctly before that
Mm,
with a readiness assessment phase 0. But the other aspect is you you really need to see the whole picture at the big picture level, but also at the detail level in the process, at the detail level in the tech, and almost no one has that. On the vendor side, they know the tech. Often they have people who know the functional aspect, the features, how to use it, but they don't know how it works in the database and in the code. So you have 2, 3 different levels of consultants on the vendor side, and on the business side you have the SMEs, the matter experts. You have the power users, or the people who actually know how the system works, the ones who are trained and then train their team, like the famous train the trainer. But besides those people, you have above them the managers, who can be the process owners because they need to be linked to the C-suite, to the execs. And then you have the people actually operating the system, just following the procedures and knowing how it's done for really specific aspects of it. So this is where usually people like me come in, with a better view of all that. Sometimes they bring a consulting team because it's a lot of work. What I do is I have the holistic vision because of my background, and I can understand all of the levels and dimensions. This is why I call my business Holistinformatics. It's really the holistic view of the informatics aspect
mm,
of all this.
hmm. And from like the SMBs businesses that are thinking about investing into a new ERP or one of those systems, what do they usually underestimate from that kind of project? What do they don't think about usually?
Many different things. Often it's a real underestimation of how much investment they need to build, to do upfront in the readiness assessment, in the preparation, before starting selecting the system, before starting to implement and selecting the vendor. The idea is either you pay it upfront and it looks maybe larger than what you expected, or you end up paying it later, but it's gonna cost you much more. And no matter who you're gonna pay it to, it's gonna end up being really more costly. And it's something I learned early on in research already, is the sooner you catch an issue, the cheaper it's gonna be. It's known in software development lifecycle too. The better you prepared you are, the more flow you're gonna have in your implementation and execution, and the better total cost of ownership you're gonna have. So yeah, to answer your question, is that's another aspect of it. It's reviewing the total cost of ownership. It's not just when do you hit your return on investment on what you spent on the implementation and what it saved you on the operations and license, all of the CapEx and OpEx side of it. It's really about long term, how much technical debt you're going to have, how much each change request is going to cost you. If you have so many customizations and semi-automatic or manual integrations between systems, if you have Excel workarounds, this is going to be a headache every time you want to change something, add a feature, change a process, no matter where it comes from. Is it a restructuration, reorganization of the business? Is it a new customer request? Is it just efficiency or a new direction? It all goes down to changing the system being the tech, but also the process and the human doing it.
And have you seen on the tech side, have you seen those systems implementing way more of AI or the AI automatizations now that AI is super popular? Do those systems are changing a lot in the past couple of years from all that new technology coming in?
I haven't seen it firsthand in my own projects yet, but I've seen it in parallel projects and I see it a lot in the world in general, just looking at what's happening with colleagues and other businesses. So it started off as director said, we need AI because I read it somewhere and it's the new edge that we need to have. It's changing so rapidly that it's actually sometimes really a game changer and really a good idea to start using AI and machine learning, but it can take so many different forms. It's not about your employees using a chatbot on the daily life. Is really adding intelligence in a specific module. So it can be on any side of it. It can be with the accounts payable. It can be in the scheduling of your production when you're a manufacturing business. It can be optimizing distribution, transportation routes, and sometimes systems themselves, the ERP, are putting it inside of the UI to help the users. It's kind of an integrated chatbot, but it's really intelligence for change management and training and onboarding. So it's kind of a crazy revolution that's happening. There are people leading it a lot more than me. But I'm trying to follow and keep the pace.
And do you think that's an edge that you actually need to have for the future since it's moving so fast? Since if you don't have that, is this something that you'll be way behind from?
For me specifically, I think I'm going to continue looking at it, trying it, and I'm going to have to work with it in more and more in my projects. I think the pitfall is going to get really narrow and see only one specific avenue with it, because I always need to take a step back and have this holistic vision of the architecture, the integrations, the workflows, data flows, and AI can be used anywhere in all of those different parts and components of the system. People are using a lot of the really large language models, but I think more and more it's starting and going to be like smaller models, but really tailored for what the business use. Instead of generic public and cloud system, it's going to be really more on-premise or self-hosted, but like kind of semi-proprietary small AI components within the modules that people use. There are companies also that are starting to extend typical ERP stack with AI modules, saying that the issue is with ERP is not so much their transactional database, but it's really about the old interface, the UI, the UX that's always lagging compared to best of breed software. But at the same time, you don't want to have only best of breed software because your architecture is going to look like a jigsaw puzzle that's terrible to maintain and integrate. So if you want an already integrated software, often it's going to have an old interface. But if you keep the backend side of it, a little like headless servers did for the web several years ago, if you add new modules with AI, it's starting to already be cheaper and faster to implement, and it's going to give you sometimes a more unified or more modern UI too. So that's something that's interesting to me, and I'm looking to continue in that direction too with my projects. Doesn't mean that it's going to be the only way forward, but more and more people into that direction.
Yeah, I think you already have a pretty much a good background with it because you mentioned you already worked in machine learning before. It was probably a while ago, but still kind of the same now.
Yeah, it was mostly the theory in my MSc and engineering studies. So I understand the concepts behind it, the neural networks, all of the pattern recognition, classification approaches that can bring that. It can take many forms, can be indexation of documents, can be visual optical recognition, can be prediction with the neural networks. But what I see is most machine learning actually using the neural network side of it, but a lot of them are combining different techniques and algorithms behind it. So it was, yeah, already over 20 years ago. So it changed so much in that time. So yeah, my experience is not so much with the tools themselves that have been developed recently, but I understand what's going on behind that, and I'm starting to use them more and more, catch up to the leaders in those fields. But it's so easy to get scattered all over the place
Yes,
because
there's
I
so
don't know
many.
anyone who can keep up on all of that. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, you have to pick one and then wish it's gonna stay for more than 6 months and then then not go to the other one. So for your business, what's going well for it for from where you started?
I'd say maybe the diversity of my clients and the industries, it's keeping me in what I like of changing and having always a larger vision and transferable knowledge and skills. So I don't hyper specialize. I'm always able to adjust to any kind of new needs and situations for my clients. And in the past, since I work alone mostly, I had capacity issues where I had to say no to some new contracts. So what I'm doing right now is kind of working on partnering, having a better network of people who I can trust and with whom we can refer projects
Mhm.
or delegate tasks sometimes. So this is what I'm working on currently and what's going well for me.
And on the opposite, what's the big challenge of the business now? I think you just mentioned referrals. Sometimes that could be one of the challenges. What is it right now?
What I've seen recently, I'd say in the past year, maybe year and a half, is my bigger clients were in manufacturing and they've been hit really hard with, in the past years, started with all of the worldwide supply issues during COVID and everything. And more recently with the tariffs. So as soon as you do import, export, Canada,
Yeah.
USA,
Mhm.
uh, you're going to really lose profits. And this is what I see is they cut projects and they have issues with their growth in that way. So this is where what I do is starting to be cut off too, because it's an investment. But if you can barely run the operations, you're not ready to invest in transformation. So
So like the your challenge is like client retention from those all those changes.
retention or just finding new contracts in those
Mm,
areas.
okay.
Uh, but at the same time, since I stay open and with a wider offer, I'm currently starting a larger project more on the architecture side with including AI, ML, and a lot of different technologies. So it's going to help me also have a better view when I come back later with business systems,
Mm.
ERP, etc.
And I think you mentioned manufacturing and architecture now. What other niches have you worked with?
Oh, I was talking of a system architecture, but in my clients, I've had a lot of natural health too, because this is where I come from. And when I took my leap of faith into the unknown and started my business late 2012 or early 2013, my first clients were actually in that aspect. So the industry of holistic natural health can take many forms, but there were sometimes manufacturing aspects to it, sometimes just service or distribution, teaching and education. So still different verticals in the same domain.
And what's the big challenge? Sorry, the big goal for the business in the next year or 6 months?
I'd say plenty of contracts flowing and multiple partners to to delegate or refer work. I'd also like to return to maybe smaller clients or too. Like I like having medium, large clients, but taking on more holistic health, well-being, nature, outdoors clients. Maybe music industry too is something I haven't worked on, but we did some projects in school about that. And since we studied also the electronic side of it, that's used in instruments, there's manufacturing, but electronics is really a specific industry. So kind of open to anything. But in the end, I like to work with people who are really passionate about what their business is doing, when the business has a mission and a human, ethical way of communicating and dealing with the inside and outside world.
Hmm.
So this is
Well,
what
that's
I'm
great.
aiming for.
So a new niche, new clients, and just see basically meet new people at the same time.
Yes.
That's amazing. So for people who are listening to us right now, where could they join you or talk with you?
Currently, I'm a lot on LinkedIn, so you can find me by name Florent Bouchy or with my business name Holistinformatics, which I realize is quite a mouthful, but if you see a QR code or just a link, you can get there.
Perfect, Flora. Thank you again.
Thank you, Maxime.